Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We are back in the Phoenix pub by Oxford Circus. Look who joins me. It's Patrick Van Straat with a new hat today, a different coloured one. Was it green last week, black today?
Correct.
I think this is the first appearance on camera with it though.
You're probably correct.
I am.
That's
definitely.
right.
Hampson's here as well. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, mate. Obviously, we did the live stream last night, so not feeling the freshest. Forgot to get my coffee. Feeling very envious of you right now, but good. Other than that, good.
Good man. Okay, today we are going to be talking about every single Premier League club in the league, and one thing we've learned from each side effectively over the first, is it 5 games in now? We 6 games in? 5 or 6 games in, whatever we are now. I think we're 5 because you're 5 from 5, aren't you, as a football club? But the suggestions have come from the fans, haven't they?
Not you personally.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
I am 5 from 5.
Yeah.
Last 5 Sunday Vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the suggestions have been sent in by fans, haven't they, on Twitter? So we may as well go in league order, which you're top of, mate. Well done. Arsenal, Kawal Vora says that Saliba and Martinelli might be the best youngsters in the league, is what he's learned.
Just to clarify, I put these fan submissions in for each team just as a bit of a thought starter. Yeah. We can disagree, we can navigate away from that. Doesn't have to be about Saliba and co.
Do we agree with Kawal there?
There are a lot of good youngsters in the league, but
Phil Foden plays football.
But they've certainly got a shout. I mean, like Martinelli has had a really, really good career. He's been a consistent scorer his whole career. But now you watch him and you're like, is this Arsenal's best player? Is this one of the top 2 at Arsenal? Like, I mean, huge shot numbers through the first few games of the season, big chance creation numbers, amazing in the one-on-one, incredible pace. If he can stay fit, and that's the only issue, he's still 21. You know, like, this is a kid who, like, hasn't really put together a full season. But when he plays, he always looks absolutely dynamite. And we always kind of thought that the combination of a striker like Gabriel Jesus would really kind of set him on fire, and it does seem like that's happening right now. Like, Arsenal's attack is looking really, really impressive, and especially because, you know, I said before that one of my concerns was that none of them is really very big. But against Villa, for example, you know, Villa were really trying to kick them out of the game, and Saka, Martinelli and Jesus, they're all deceptively strong. They're able to turn and get away. They're great. I mean, Saliba is arguably a more special talent, even because, like, it's so rare to see a centre-back who's that young, who's played that many minutes and who looks that assured. I think he's been Arsenal's best actual defender so far this season in terms of defending.
What would you do if you were Saliba? Would you sign the contract?
No.
I would either.
I wouldn't at all.
Contract up, when is it, 2023?
No, it's 2024.
But you have a year left next year.
Yeah, so next summer. So if you have a great season in the Premier League, next summer you can basically, like, write your own ticket. You can just say, I'm not signing a new deal. Like, why would I? However, maybe he'll do that. Maybe he will do that. But, of course, Arteta's got basically a year to convince him that he's part of the project. One thing that we can say about Arteta, which is absolutely not debatable, is that he has been extremely good at getting these young players to buy into his project. So if anyone could do it, he could do it. But, like, yeah, if I was Saliba personally, I'd be like, I could go to Man City in 2 years. Yeah, I'm just going to do that.
Or Real Madrid, something like that.
Less interesting.
I wanted to garner your thoughts on Arsenal's sort of last-minute pursuits. So Douglas Luiz, they obviously went in with 3 bids, didn't they, for the Aston Villa midfielder. Yeah. There was a sort of brief flirtation of various media reports are led to be believed with Noah Lang as wing cover. Did any of them tickle your pickle? And do you still think you desperately need cover at the base of midfield, or do you think someone like Saliba and his passing range will help cover that until January? Because he can step out, can't he? He can be a bit more expansive.
It's less about his passing range. I mean, like, there's so much passing in this side now. Like, when you've got a back 4, especially when you play Zinchenko, you've got Zinchenko, Gabriel, Saliba and White in the back 4. The only one of those who isn't an amazing passer is Gabriel. The others are all really good. And obviously you've got Xhaka in midfield as well. But I don't know. I've never been a particular fan of Douglas Luiz, but he's pretty active in the duel. Like, I guess I can understand it. I think 25 million would have been absolutely top end for, like, what he brings. I've never been a particularly big fan. I completely understand why Villa said no. Noah Lang would have been interesting. On the other hand, he's at an age where he needs to get a ton of minutes to develop. So you get in a player like that, and it's almost like you're going to stifle their growth, because right now Smith Rowe isn't playing very much. So I'm not sure that Lang is going to play over Saka or Martinelli. Obviously Europa League starting, but even there, you know, Nketiah's not playing much right now, and Nketiah in the last couple of games when he's come on has been dynamite. So I really like Noah Lang. He'd have been a player I was very interested in. There was also a rumour that we were going to try and make a loan bid for Pulisic, which would have been kind of interesting stuff.
That would have.
I think it leaves us a little bit light in the attacking line. Midfield, I think, is okay because the whole team is kind of functioning. You saw Arsenal have El Neni step into the number 6 role the other day, and they were dominant against Fulham. Then you saw Sambi Lokonga step into the number 6 role against Villa, and we were dominant again. So now that everything's kind of working, and of course Ben White can play there too. So now you're in a situation where, because the team as a whole is working, and because you do have aggressive defenders who can cover a lot of ground, it is less of an issue. In an ideal world, we would have quality cover there, but I think it looks we will be able to beat the vast majority of teams without our first choice kind of number 6 there. When it comes to, your Cities and Liverpools, maybe not.
I think it's a shame that I think
probably.
The Zakaria loan move that Chelsea picked up would have been a really interesting one for Arsenal as well. Obviously on a year-long loan with no obligation or anything to buy. I think that clearly Arteta, similar sort of thought process to Jurgen Klopp, doesn't want to go for somebody for the sake of going for somebody when he's got a really solid structure, he's got a really good group together there that is maybe going to disrupt the flow. So I think that it's a shame he couldn't get a loan move done, and it did feel, just in the last sort of 12 hours, just started to feel a bit panicky from Arsenal with Douglas Luiz, and obviously no sign of a right winger. But
yeah, it was hard to sort of follow their thinking, right? Because El Neni got that injury against Fulham, I think it was his hamstring, so he's out for a while, and then Thomas Partey had all those minor muscle injuries, so it was like, all right, Arsenal need cover in the defensive quarters, like get a DM in on loan, like you've said, that would have been ideal. But then they're sort of pursuing guys who are, a little bit more box to box, or Tielemans, who's a little bit more attacking. So I didn't get it entirely, but yeah, I think you're playing like the second or third best side in the country right now. Are you confident you're going to finish in the top 4 after this start?
I mean, I don't. The start doesn't particularly. If we'd lost a bunch of points in this start, then it would mean I was not very confident. The fact that we've taken these points doesn't really make me more confident. I mean, like, we're playing
fairly
extremely
easy fixtures,
well.
right?
Sure, but then again, like Palace away is not an easy fixture.
yeah,
It
it's
certainly
not been
wasn't
easy fixtures in the
last
league.
year.
Honestly, even Fulham, like Mitrovic, causes so many problems that they're an issue.
And what has been nice about it is go goal down against Fulham, come back and win 2-1, get a ridiculous goal allowed against us against Villa, end up winning anyway. Like, those are such big results, especially for a young team.
Your resilience has been impressive.
I think we've been better than Chelsea so far. We've been better than Spurs so far. Like, those things are extremely encouraging.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a good position. Let's put it that way.
Quick look under the hood before the live stream yesterday, and it was like, I think maybe second or third for shots, second or third for best record in terms of shots conceded, like 4th for possession. So the numbers and the eye test are sort of matching up at current, aren't they?
Yeah.
And spelling Champions League club.
I'm looking forward to United Arsenal Sunday. I think that's going to be a good old battle, because obviously Arsenal are much more informed, but United do have those occasional weapons to hurt you, don't
big test for Arsenal.
And Old Trafford, if Arsenal were to get a result at Old Trafford, that would mean such a lot to that team.
Because you've
right?
notoriously struggled there.
We always struggle at Old Trafford. We just never beat you there. So, look, if we lose, I don't think it will necessarily be the end of the world. But if we were to win or get a draw where we were the better side, I think that would mean a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to second placed, somehow, Manchester City, who, there's only one place to start, really. Mr. Random AF guy says, Haaland will graduate to the Messi, Ronaldo level of discussion. I mean, he's currently on course to hit 63 this season, I think.
He's averaging 2.03 goals and assists per 90.
Which is obviously not sustainable, but...
Well...
but he has gone brace hat-trick.
And also his entire career, he's scored at above expected goals rate.
Yeah.
His entire career.
Because he has such a great range of finishing, unorthodox finishing as well, right?
Unbelievable range of movement within the box. Just small little 5-yard movements that put people out of place.
He can hold off anyone in the world. He hits
it
so hard with both feet.
I have noticed, I don't know, like when he gets into the channels where a centre-back comes across, where usually a centre-back gives you a nudge or something in the box, his arm seems to extend about 12 foot and he just pins the guy. It was really noticeable. I think it was the second or third goal last weekend where he pinned the player coming through the back of him. I think it was Joaquin Anderson trying to come around the back of him for his hat-trick against Palace, and it was like, what on earth am I witnessing?
It's similar to the near post finish against Forest, which may have been his first goal, where he sort of hangs out a lazy left foot, lets it hit the outside of his boot when it's coming across him, and it sneaks in the near post. Such an impressive finish.
Yeah, he's just, I mean,
but
an incredibly scary. So I'm not sure. Like I don't know how you deal with him. Like it's going to be really interesting to see throughout the course of the season how managers adapt their tactics purely for Erling Haaland, because it's going to have to start happening.
But it may not even just be tactics, right? It might just be like specific like ways that defenders can do.
Yeah.
So if defenders realise that, okay, his arm's going to come out and he's going to try and do this to me, then it might not be so much about changing tactics as saying to defenders, okay, when his arm comes out, like
get your head in there.
Maybe you go down, or like maybe you like get your arm in first, or like there are things that
cultivate a reputation.
There are things like that we like don't necessarily think of as tactics, but I think are probably such a big part of like how you deal with him. And look, if there's any league in the world where people are going to work it out to a degree, like it will be here. But like, man,
him versus Christian Romero would be an interesting one, because he will be like writhing about on the turf.
And he will be jumping on backs, there'll be studs down the back of necks, there'll be all sorts going on.
All the biggest guys in the league. It'd be great to see him against Van Dijk, it'd be great to see him against Gabriel, it'd be great to see him against like guys like Dunk, just like guys who can physically stand up to him will be interesting. And even some of the smaller people, it'd be interesting to see how your more nimble defenders.
Mind you, I watched him throw Joe Worrell and Steve Cook over like
but there'll be guys who can stand up to him physically, and then there'll be guys who say, well, I can't stand up to him physically, so what's my plan?
Martinez.
It'll be that would be really interesting. I think Martinez versus Haaland is actually quite an interesting
Champions League, didn't we?
And it's an interesting battle.
Dortmund.
It wasn't that great.
It's just crazy how, like, you know, when he just lurks in between the fullback and the centre back, and you just know he's going to make that run behind, and it's not even like the defensive line is that high, but he just beats the centre back to it, and it's a really simple movement from out to in, but his timing, his touch, his finish, they're just close to perfection, aren't they? They have been at the moment.
I dread to think how many he's going to get. Let's move away from him though, because the chat has been endless about Erling Haaland. On to Tottenham, who are third place right now. El Ziad says Spurs still have a long way to go to challenge for the title.
Yes.
I think, but we could have told you that, El Ziad, before the season started.
Conte's told you that literally in those words.
I think they finished
Conte's been like, we need 2 more.
I think they were 23 points off City last season, and the idea that the summer business or Antonio Conte is good enough to rein in 23 points on probably the greatest Premier League team of all time that have just added Haaland is comical.
Should we change this to third then? Like, because I think a lot of people at the, you know, in the middle of the summer, let's say, when they'd brought in a few players, were very positive about Tottenham, had bumped them up in their expectations, and then they played Chelsea at the start of the campaign, and they looked miles off Chelsea. And I think Tuchel probably,
until Conte went off,
very aggrieved not to get 3 points from that game.
But then subsequently, I thought they've looked better than Chelsea. I thought Chelsea have looked awful in the last 2 or 3 games. They looked totally
but just in terms of
head to head,
I think
rubbish against West Ham.
I think they look the 4th best team in the league, Tottenham, for me. I think Arsenal probably the 2nd best, and then I know that Liverpool have had some poor results, but I still think there's been some really good performances in there.
They're still amazing
against like Crystal Palace. They were off it a little bit, but they still dominated nearly the entirety. I mean, even against United at Old Trafford, yes, United hit them on the break a couple of times and played quite well, but the signs of dominance were still there. Like, I still think they're the 2nd best team in the league, and then Arsenal, and then probably Tottenham. I think Chelsea look a bit of a mess. We're going to talk about them in a bit, but once Antonio Conte gets these players into the positions and regularly playing, like we've only seen 2 weeks of Perisic at full flow at the moment, when he's at full tilt, when Basuma is at full tilt in the midfield, because I thought he looked a little bit off it against...
And Son as well.
Well, it was his first start against West Ham, wasn't it?
And Son is miles off his usual level. I think of the 5 games I've watched, he's probably been the worst Tottenham player in every single one. So I think they are going to be fine and will be solidly top 4, but I don't think they're anywhere near a title.
And that's
defender.
where he probably, Conte, has the edge on other managers. He can extrapolate more. He can make good players, very good players, more so than some other managers in the top 6.
And they've still got the best front 3s outside of...
So I'm backing him to squeeze existing personnel, but I was looking at that lineup against West Ham, and I was thinking, in the absence of Romero, in the absence of like a fully firing Son and Kane, I still think he would do very well to secure 4th place in the face of an improving Arsenal, in the face of an improving Man United. I know you've had a tragic start to the season, but no, I'm still looking at Emerson Royale at right back. I'm still thinking kind of 33-year-old Perisic. Last 38 games in the Premier League. He didn't start the first 2-3, did he? So 30 games in the Premier League, let's say. They do lack creativity in the middle. That's why we were talking about Malinovsky off air, just to say, it would have been really interesting had they gone for the Atalanta man, just to add that something different to their sort of forward roster. Because if you stop their fullbacks like David Moyes did, they are not very as threatening as a proposition. So I think people are going to have their number a little bit more maybe this season, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm still pretty positive about
Tottenham. Yeah, same. I
still think they're very resilient.
But
they're
the
very
question
resilient.
is, well, you say, yeah, but they're also giving up a lot of shots right now.
Yeah.
And like they're not giving up big chances except against West Ham. But if you give up a lot of shots, it's quite easy for one of them to go in and then suddenly you're in trouble. Because what you don't see with Spurs at the moment is an ability necessarily to change the way they play. You know, so if you get a goal up against Spurs and they can't counter-attack, you do feel a little bit less concerned that they're just going to pile on waves of pressure than you would against some of the other teams in the league. You know, like Liverpool were piling on pressure the other day with 10 men. Like Spurs aren't in that position.
Yeah.
So as everyone comes back fit, it'll be interesting to see how Conte develops.
He switched it up against Chelsea, didn't he, when he went to that kind of 4-2-4 temporarily, and that was nice to see. That was refreshing to see Conte sort of respond to Tuchel with a different formation rather than stick to that 3-4-3 so rigidly. But yeah, I mean, maybe when Romero comes back, they're not going to give up those short shots. At the minute with Davinson Sanchez, probably, perhaps.
Yeah, I'd like to see Richarlison get a few more minutes as well. Given that I think Son has been off it, I would like to see Richarlison like get a start every now and then. Otherwise, what was the point in paying the £60 million for him if you're just going to continuously play Kulusevski?
Have they got anyone else on the bench that I'm massively overlooking, apart from Richarlison?
Well, Bentancur wasn't fit against West Ham either, was he? And he's obviously very, very incisive passer for them. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see when they
maybe
all come back,
Jed Spence can, you know, if he improves as well, add a little bit more to that right side. Royale's improved, but still a massively upgradable area. Yeah,
Brighton from Folds Ashley says that we've learned that Graham Potter is one of the top 7 managers in the league. He is so good. I mean, obviously we weren't that hot on the cooker ASL from a Chelsea perspective anyway, but you know, doesn't look to have affected the side whatsoever. And the fact that they've lost Basuma, who we thought was one of their key players, best players, again, doesn't feel like it's affected the team whatsoever. Like Moises Caicedo playing there and playing really, really well and picked up from basically out of nowhere. I know there was some interest from Manchester United, but amazing scouting yet again by Brighton. And then to bring in Billy Gilmour on deadline day for £8 million in a midfield three alongside Mwepu and Moises Caicedo, I think that's an amazing move for him as a player.
It's also got a bit. It's got a bit of the Pep thing, you know, that season where Gundogan just scored like a bunch of goals from midfield, and that's what they've been doing with Gross early doors. It's like,
he's been amazing.
What are they going to do with their attack? They need a striker. It's like, I don't know, like maybe Pascal Gross will just become one of the best goal scoring midfielders in the league, and he's been phenomenal. Like I every season, like last season, I was looking at them and I was just like, how's he getting this production out of Danny Welbeck, man?
I know,
like it's phenomenal. Like I love that guy. He is easily one of the top 7 managers in the league, maybe even higher than that. But I don't know how much longer they're going to keep him.
Yeah.
Because his ability to change things every year and his ability to change things from game to game is staggering. His ability to lose talent and make it look like nothing's happened, that is so impressive. I really. It's hard to praise Graham Potter enough for the job he's done at Brighton.
Yeah, and the Brighton hierarchy as well. I think the sort of movement from Dan Ashworth into, is it David Weir that's there now, has been like seamless. Like over the summer, it hasn't been a case of wow, they look like they've replaced them terribly. They've been perfectly happy to lose these players. Even Neil Maupay, who we thought was actually a pretty good option for Brighton, even though he gets hammered on social media, you know, scoring 10 goals a season for Brighton, fine, happy to go. Okay, wants to go to Everton, let him go to Everton, and you know, we'll make do with what we've got with Danny Welbeck up front, and we'll have goals from Pascal Gross and Trossard will chip in and McAllister. Like, I worry there
if he can only get 8 to 12 goals in that Brighton side, who are creating a litany of chances for him, then I think at Everton he'll probably get 4 to 6. I mean, I've been banging this drum for the last 2 or 3 years, so I don't think I've got nothing new to say about Potter. I've loved him for a long, long time, and I agree with Pat. I'd probably put him inside the tops, 6. Just because we haven't got a full season of Premier League football, Ten Hag-wise, to assess, have we?
Yeah.
But yeah. What a team.
What a team. Liverpool up next then. And actually it's not Liverpool.
Although
Man United have usurped Liverpool in the league table now. So it's Man United next if we're doing league table wise. Thank you.
I would say with Brighton that the fans are very critical of their forward recruitment, aren't they? That's I think one area where people will say, well, that's where the recruitment is consistently letting us down. Let's see how Undav fares, but
yeah,
that's such a regen name. I love it.
Man United next, because they have usurped.
All right, yeah, you said it once. You don't have to say it again.
Just want to really drive that.
Go on then, tell us about Man United.
In the table now.
It doesn't matter.
The assumption here from Tyrone Chambers is that Cristiano Ronaldo will be a bit part player as he moves closer to getting his coaching badges. I think it is brave by Erik ten Hag, the idea of continuously benching Cristiano Ronaldo. But it had to be done. Doesn't fit the system, and I think we could all say United look a better team without Cristiano. The issue will be when we lose 3 games in a row or 2 games in a row, every pundit will go, why is he not playing Ronaldo? Why is he not playing Ronaldo? Then the pressure will build on him to play Ronaldo. He'll have to play Ronaldo and things will get worse.
Yeah, Ronaldo still has a use.
Definitely, but he won't accept that bench role.
Well, that's tough then. He's still just a player. He's just a player. He's not the greatest player of all time. He's just a guy. I don't understand. This idea that he won't accept a bench role.
Yeah.
He signed a contract.
I know.
He's never been
37
before. So he just has to accept that things are going to change. And it's an interesting opportunity. It's both a test and an opportunity for Ten Hag, where he can say I'm in charge. How much do the club trust me? And if they don't trust him and they end up getting rid of him, then it'll be he was still right to bench Ronaldo.
We all think he was right to bench him, don't
Ronaldo
we?
should be a rotation player at this point. I think everybody with eyes understands that. By the way, Ronaldo getting his coaching badges, I cannot think of a player less suited to becoming a manager than Cristiano Ronaldo.
He won't be going.
Truly.
I can't see him going into coaching. But
it'd be awful,
bringing him back to football, I think he's definitely made the right decision benching him in these early weeks, even though the front line still hasn't quite clicked. Looked a little bit better against Leicester, but hasn't quite found a rhythm with a number 9, obviously with Rashford playing through the middle and Martial's injuries.
Well, Ten Hag's clearly quickly discovered what's his name? Rangnick did after 2 or 3 weeks, that Alanga's necessary for the mobility, for the pressing, for the benefit of the whole team, for the composition of that forward line. But also, just going back to Ronaldo, what's he gonna? He has to accept the bench role at this point, because he's tried to engineer a move out of the club every which way, and no one else will take him. So it's not even a matter of humility. It's not even a matter of him, being forced to the bench. He's put himself in this position. He's actually made his position weaker by offering himself out to every club going, and no one will take him. So I don't think Ten Hag is going to be in. He's going to face the sort of same repercussions as previous managers when dropping Ronaldo, because the narrative has changed.
It has shifted. You're right.
It has shifted.
But trust me, the pressure will build if United have a couple of bad results, just because he has that aura, Ronaldo, in the press anyway, and I think amongst certain sections of the Manchester United fan group.
I don't think Ten Hag gives a shit what's said in the press either.
And I respect that. I absolutely respect that. Let's go to Liverpool next. Aidan says that his shot losing Mane would be much worse than initially thought. That's his assumption.
I don't think that's true at all.
No? They definitely lack Mane's incisiveness.
No, the attack is totally fine. The attack is totally fine, especially when Nunez has played. When Nunez has played, the attack has looked scary.
Tiniest sample size.
The midfield, sure,
only
but
played one game.
Sure, but it's a tiny sample size to say that they're not coping without Mane as well. I just think, yes, of course it's a loss, but it was an acceptable loss. Liverpool knew that there would be a transition period, but you don't just you don't make a huge transfer like this for the first 5 games. You make it for the next few years. It's just not an area I worry about. The attack is not an area I worry about. The midfield, I have my concerns. Sometimes I have my issues with the back line, especially the right side of it. But the attack is going to be fine.
Yeah, and also another suggestion here from Anthony is that Liverpool could be about to go through a big transition period, which I just don't agree with. I think that there's problems in the midfield where... But what is a big transition period is they're still going to finish on 90 points, I reckon.
No, but he means... But doesn't he mean in squad turnover? The attack has been turned over. The attack is now admittedly Firmino's playing and scoring, but the attack has turned over. We've now got Diaz, Nunez, and Jota, and obviously Firmino is more of a rotation guy, and Mane's gone. The midfield, Henderson is getting past it, Milner is past it, Keita and the Ox out of contract next summer. Obviously, Thiago is at a point in his career where he's going to be in and out. That is a transition period, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think, Anthony says here about this drop-off. I don't think there's going to be a big drop-off for Liverpool. I still think they are going to be pretty much where they were last year. I know that the midfield has been a huge issue at the start of the season, and I'm unconvinced about the Arthur signing. But when the injuries are back, I just think that it's just such a machine, Liverpool.
Yeah,
It's like
agreed.
we'll just click into gear again.
Obviously, it's such fine margins at the top of the Premier League, and their barometer, their yardstick is Manchester City, right? And I do think they're less well equipped without Mane, and in this period of transition, to challenge them for the title. So I think their title charge, I mean, we've already seen it at the start of the season, they have been a bit unfortunate in various games, isn't going to be as convincing as 1-2 years ago.
Yeah, it might be 86 points or something. Like, that might be their drop.
Like,
ridiculous.
those fine margins, we might see some daylight between them and Manchester City, but there's enough good young players at that club for them to only be 1 or 2 world-class additions away, i.e. Jude Bellingham, from being right up City's arses again.
Yeah, true. Very true. Let's go to Leeds next then. XG Converter says that Jesse Marsch is an underrated coach. That's what he's learned.
Yep.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. And I think also that their summer recruitment has been really, really positive, and that they've backed the manager exactly as he wanted. I think the recruitment has been perfectly aligned with what he wanted. You know, a lot of new managers or coaches are like, I feel like aren't supported in the way they actually want to be, so they get players thrown at them and say, deal with this. Whereas Jesse Marsch very clearly has gone, I want this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and they're going to play in this way. And they're all from the Red Bull group, and they already know me. So hats off to the Leeds.
Radrizzani and Victor Orta deserve a lot of credit for that, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they're delivering promises to every manager that come through that door at the moment.
Yeah, although I still feel like they
promises.
were a striker short come the end of the window.
It's really difficult to...
And the Dieng and Gakpo kind of calamity. Yeah, it's a little bit.
The Dieng thing, particular with the tweet about the agreement of the deal, but like,
what can you do? Yeah.
But with Bamford's injury problems, feeling like they're almost getting to the stage of like terminal. Like I think he trained 10 days or something last season. This season it's like,
oh wow,
he looked weird the other day, right? He looked slow.
He just didn't look like classic Bamford. So really hope he gets back to his full fitness. And then Rodriguez obviously now dislocated his shoulder, so he's going to be out for 6 weeks. I think they're expecting.
I don't mind Gerrard as a sort of I don't know what we make way for the time being. He's busy, like he's going to press. He's not a bad little finisher. Good movement off the ball, so he could keep them ticking over. But yeah, they've got the other signings so spot on that they can afford now to sort of start thinking about January to fill that striking department.
Fulham average Uke says that Mitrovic is a top 10 caliber striker. Would you have Mitrovic at our top 10 side? I think comfortably.
Top 10 side, yeah, definitely.
Definitely. I think there's arguments to be made that Mitrovic could have given the striking dearth required across some of the bigger boys this summer. Wouldn't have been the worst covering option. Not saying like for a Man City or a Liverpool, but I think that he, as a backup, he would be amazing for like a Harry Kane backup or something like that. I think his ability in the air is the best in the league as a striker.
Well, how much did Wolves pay for Kaladzic?
20 mil.
17.
Because I would have put him more at one of those sides, the side that are trying to establish himself in the middle of the Premier League, right? He could have gone to. He could have definitely elevated Wolves, Leicester, even provided more. If Villa are going to play a more direct style this season, and Aston Villa, they've just got runners, haven't they?
Brighton. Oh,
I think somebody said this. I think somebody might have tweeted this, maybe at us, said if you put Mitrovic in Brighton, we would be aiming for we'd be competing for Europa League places, and you can kind of see it. I would be interested in seeing that.
His domination in the air is just scary. The winner,
but not just in the air. He's turned a couple of guys inside out.
And he hustles as well. He presses
he's great, man.
Against Arsenal, to win the ball back from Gabriel, and just a composed finish. I really like Mitrovic, and Fulham's business has been okay. Come the end of the window, I think Palhinha has settled much quicker than I was expecting him to, and already looks a fantastic signing for a team like Fulham. Even Andreas Pereira, not flashy or anything, but his ability at set pieces and stuff is going to have a huge effect for Fulham when you've got a player like Mitrovic in the air. I
mean, Palhinha, if he carries on pressing like he is just going to disappear into the ether, because the man has completed 100 more defensive pressures than anyone else in the league at the moment.
He's going to need to with Willian joining.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Southampton. Your boy JC1 says the thing that he's learned at the start of the season is that Lavia is a baller. I think overall, I'm kind of changing my opinion. I think a couple of weeks ago on this, I was pretty worried about the Southampton business. I think that some of the Southampton business has settled a lot quicker than I was expecting. I still have big concerns for Ralph Hasenhüttl in the short term, where I think there is a bit of turmoil going on behind the scenes. You know, the idea to get rid of his entire coaching staff, keep him, and then bring him a new coaching staff is fine. But then if results start to go against you, you don't necessarily then have the support of your own coaching staff in that position, which I think could be troublesome. And I still think they're massively short on goals. Yes, Adam Armstrong, good finish against Chelsea, and Che Adams is obviously, you know, he's busy up front, not really a goal scorer in my opinion. So as good as some of the business has been, Kaleta, Bella Kotchap looks an unbelievable pickup, Lavia in midfield replacing Romeu, fine.
Goals from Aribo, Sekumara.
But I think they're short on goals, and I think if a few bad results turn, we've already seen the headlines, I think 2 weeks ago, that the big name players in the team weren't happy with Hasenhüttl and were turning against it. I think that could easily happen again.
You get the impression they're gonna have to start well to have a reasonable season, because a lot of those youngsters, as soon as they've got 2,000 minutes in their legs and they've been pressing like hell and they've been playing that really fast, aggressive, vertical style of play that Hasenhüttl won't compromise on, they're going to start to tire, aren't they? And they're going to probably start to get their asses handed to them by some of the big boys towards the tail end of the season. So I think it's always smart to have slight concerns about Southampton.
It's just short term, really. Long term planning for
under Hasenhüttl, because there's never been a period where there's not been a bit of tumult around the corner, right? But like that's what makes him exciting, I guess.
Anything to add on Southampton?
I would keep Hasenhüttl before I kept any player at that club. Like, he's much more important. And when we talk about senior players, there aren't that many of them. So it's like we're talking about Ward-Prowse. Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's a concern, though, if Ward-Prowse is turned against
you. Yeah, but Hasenhüttl was much better than Ward-Prowse. Like,
Ward-Prowse would have turned it on him. He's a good boy.
He's also, like, the only manager under whom Ward-Prowse has ever looked good. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm kind of ready for Hasenhüttl to leave, because it just feels like he gets shafted every season.
He's not getting his props.
Every season. And I agree. Like, you look at the squad and you're like, every year he must look at it and be like, oh my God, like, how am I going to stay up with this? Like, these young players, I think you were right to have concerns, because they are just gambling on their youth recruitment. I'd love them to stay up because I like the way that they recruit, but like I kind of just want Hasenhüttl to go to like a more stable club now.
I think they bought, interestingly, I think that their new head, because obviously their head of recruitment went to Leicester, but they put him on gardening leave, and then they replaced their head of recruitment with Manchester City's head of academy recruitment, which is obviously why you've seen like Bazunu, Lavia. I think 2 more Man City academy players came through on deadline day, so expect to see some more Man City academy players go to Southampton over the next couple of seasons, I would suggest. Next in the league table, we've got Chelsea. Tessio13 says that he has learned that they desperately need a defensive midfielder. Well, they got one. Dennis Zakaria. You're not having it?
Well, no, he's not like a conventional defensive midfielder, is he? Like, at his best, he's normally put up good defensive numbers, but he's not like a sitting defensive midfielder. Like, he's much more of a zone mover. Like, and
that's what Kante and Kovacic.
Yeah, he goes hunting for the ball. Like, so I think that's a great loan signing, definitely, and they definitely needed it. I still have questions about Chelsea. Creativity is a concern.
Having watched them first couple of, I'm not sure what they're trying to do. Like
just play Reece James as a wing
back, for goodness sake, and maybe that'll happen.
He's amazing. Reece James, like, as much as we mock Sam Obaseki for saying it, like, Reece James is kind of world class. Like, he's an amazing wing back.
He's unbelievable. He is. But maybe that'll happen now Wes Fofana's in the building. If they can now go to a back three, Koulibaly, Thiago Silva, Wes Fofana, and move Reece James back out there, then okay. But if we continue to see this sort of weird like elbow formation we've been seeing with the back four and Ruben Loftus-Cheek is inverted wing back, like, it's fine, but it's just not what
is that what people are calling it, the elbow formation?
Yeah, but it's not what we were seeing from the best Tuchel side at Chelsea when he had that back three and the wing backs were super high and Chilwell was getting on the end of things and Reece James was getting on the end of things. It's not the same Chelsea.
But without Kante or Kovacic, it's just hard to see. Like, look at Chelsea this season. Amazing against Spurs until Kante went off and then gave up a bunch of huge chances. And actually, you know, we say, oh, on the balance of play, Chelsea were the better side, and they were. But they gave up enough chances that it was a deserved draw. Like, and since Kante has been out, they've been incredibly porous. And so you worry if it's just this situation still where it's like, well, N'Golo Kante plays and we're amazing. He doesn't play and we're kind of crap. Yeah. So that is a little bit of a concern. If Zakaria can replicate, you know, 60-70% of what Kante does, or Kovacic just gets fit and plays a whole season, then great.
Yeah, and obviously they got Aubameyang through the door as well.
Sure.
On deadline day, which No, might get them 10 goals.
We've been
9, 10
positive
goals.
about it, I'd say, broadly.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Brentford. No fan submission from Brentford. So Brentford fans, sort yourselves out. Start getting involved in our comments. I think they've looked fine. Again, Brentford, they still look a little bit...
I think they look like,
sus,
once again, like
team.
a top 8 team, top 9 team. They were, I think the table lied a little bit when it came to their positioning last season. I think they deserved to finish in the top half at the cost of someone like Leicester, for sure. And they've added really, really smartly. And who they draw 1-1 with? Very impressive.
Palace.
Aaron Hickey's performance against Zaha, he has adapted to life at right back in the Premier League a little bit quicker than I anticipated.
Well, the goal was outrageous, though.
Yeah, I mean, no one's stopping that. Outrageous from Zaha. But they should have stole all 3 points towards the end of that game. They have a little bit of that, Arsenal resilience we were talking about earlier. They don't mind going a goal down, do they? And they've just very multifaceted. The play can switch it up. I think the best is still, we've not seen an awful lot from Keane Lewis Potter yet, have we? Their big money acquisition from Hull, who ripped at the Championship last season. I think more to come from him in the final third. I'm trying to think of some of the new signings as well. Damsgaard still yet to be fully bedded into the side. Who else is there? Ben Mee has been a rock for them at the back. Obviously got his goal against Man United as well. So yeah, the new players have hit the ground running, and
mid-table.
They just have a very which we shouldn't just shrug off the fact that they're now established as a mid-table Premier League after
Frank's
2 seasons.
Amazing job there.
Yeah, outstanding. Outstanding.
Right, talking of amazing managers, let's talk about Eddie Howe. Yolks K1 at Newcastle. He says that I've learned Newcastle are a top 8 side, and they do look pretty good, Newcastle, right now.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, in pretty much every facet of the game as well, despite the fact, we haven't really seen the settled centre-back combination yet. Is it going to be Dan Burn and Botman? Is it going to be Botman and Shah and Dan Burn at left-back? There's been some little bits of rotation and tweaks there. Kieran Trippier still looks immense. I still think that Nick Pope is one of the best keepers in the league, particularly in shot-stopping. I think I said on the stream last night, really reminds me of like the B-Tech Thibaut Courtois in goal, just so big that seems to stop everything. And going forward, like adding Isaac, and it's like you are going to see at some stage Isaac, Callum Wilson, and Alan Saint-Maximin as a front three with Joe Linton and Bruno Guimaraes off them. It's just
and you can see where the next improvement comes at Newcastle, right? Like if they add a controller in midfield to free Bruno Guimaraes to join the attack a little bit more, then great. Or if they add
a creative midfielder.
Yeah, if they add it, they're pursuing James Maddison presumably to play him in a midfield 3, right, in a 4-3-3. Although.
And Yuri Tielemans thereafter on deadline day.
Why I always gravitate towards a 4-3-3 is because I love wingers, and that's the area of the pitch where if you've got good one-on-one players, it's going to make the biggest difference, right? That gap between the centre half and the full-back, or just being isolated against the full-back. And they've just got players that you just would not want to play against, like Saint-Maximin for 90 minutes, Almiron for 90 minutes. Yeah. They're just a total ball ache. And if you can get, Saint-Maximin, if he can strike up a good relationship with Isaac and if it helps Saint-Maximin become a bit more efficient in front of goal, if he can finish a bunch of, Saint-Maximin's mazy runs off, then, Newcastle are going to...
They're unlucky not to go 2-0 up. They're unlucky not to go 2-0 up against Liverpool. If it wasn't for the millimetres of VAR, that was another great finish by Isaac. First 2 strikes of a ball, so clean.
It's not even the finish, though. It's the fact that, he completely does Robertson and Gomez. Yeah. You look at that and you think, okay. If you can get shots off in the box at that age in the Premier League. But that must be, I was just thinking, is that the biggest signing ever made by an English club outside the top 6?
It's got to be a contender.
Surely nobody's paid 60 million outside of the top 6 teams.
West Ham paid 51 for Paqueta, didn't they? But what is it? 6? Is it euros or pounds?
No, I think it's like 59 million pounds,
right? Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's nice work if you can get it. And now of course, you look at the squad and you say, well, this squad actually has to kind of finish. The expectation has completely changed. Right?
Yeah.
They've done enough work to the squad that now you're like, this squad should be comfortably finishing top half and pushing. But it's really exciting, and they're playing really good football.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of teams that are playing really good football, Crystal Palace up next. Alfonso Damon. And he says that he's learned Crystal Palace are too reliant on Zaha, and Vieira is not the manager he thinks he is. Which I actually couldn't disagree with more at this stage. I think Vieira at the start of the season has shown a really decent level of adaptability, given he's had some injury problems to the front line. Michael Olise has been, in and out of the side because of multiple injuries, and I think he's unbelievably talented. He's covered for the exiting Conor Gallagher with Eberechi Eze in there. He's got Jeffrey Schlupp doing everything, and at the back, an amazing centre-back partnership of Joachim Andersen and Mark Gahey who have instantly gelled. So I think to say that Vieira is not the manager he thinks he is, he's had more turmoil and turnover in the last 18 months, Patrick Vieira, than any other Premier League manager. Seriously, and I think he's done a brilliant job to be in the position they're in.
Yeah.
It could have collapsed. What other managers had to have like 8 new players come into the first team?
Well, you say that, but like those players massively improved the first team.
Yeah, but it's all well and good saying they massively improved them, but he's had to get them all playing.
I agree, but it's not. But it's not like they've lost players. It's they've upgraded players. Like I completely agree that he's like managed to change the style while changing the squad. That's really impressive.
They shifted the mentality of the existing personnel as well.
Yeah, and they were well beaten by Arsenal. They were well beaten by Man City. But even in those games, they had spells where they were highly impressive.
2-0 up against City.
You say that, but they'd had like one shot when they were 2-0 up. But like,
and it's the pass effect at the Etihad.
But against Arsenal, they managed to have like quite a long spell where they were piling the pressure on it. And in every other game, I think they've been impressive. And now you look at them and you're like, okay, sort right back, get a bit more depth.
Yeah,
like this. There aren't that many weak areas.
They had that bid for Conor Gallagher rejected, didn't they, at like 24 million, and they had the loan move for Aaron Wan-Bissaka rejected because United couldn't get any cover. So I think if Load had brought those two in, it'd been like, wow, a squad, a really good place,
great,
man. Yeah, I even like the forwards. Like Mateta isn't like lighting the world on fire, but him and Edouard as strike rotations, great
options.
West Ham up next. Radolspo, he says that he's learned Paqueta and Scamacca will be game changers for West Ham. I think on paper, totally agree. I'm slightly concerned how and where David Moyes is going to use Scamacca. Is he going to use him at the detriment of Mikel Antonio? I'll believe it when I see it. I think he's probably the best way to put that. I just don't see him dropping at Mikel Antonio with his off-the-ball work rate and stuff. I think we've seen it once so far this season where Scamacca started in the Premier League, but he's going to maybe have to try and find a way of playing alongside Antonio, and is that going to come at the detriment of Scamacca? I'm not too sure. Paqueta's a stunning signing, man. You can't say anything negative about Paqueta. In a midfield three with Declan Rice and Souček, probably instead of Souček.
Yeah, I mean, against Tottenham, I sort of listened to the BT panel describe him as a luxury player, and you might have just seen me tweet out that's a total nonsense because the guy presses like hell. Is a super efficient presser as well in the final third. So Premier League centre halves are going to be on their toes when Lucas Paqueta is lurking about, and he can play in multiple positions. He plays in a different position for Brazil than he did for Lyon. For Lyon, he played as an attacking midfielder, sometimes as an inverted winger, sometimes as a number 8. And yeah, so it has that grit and determination that David Moyes wants in every player. But also, what West Ham have been missing is the ability maybe to find the runs of Antonio or find the runs of Scamacca or Jarrod Bowen from the centre of the park, because that's not really Declan Rice's game, it's not really Souček's game. Now they have a guy in there that can just drop it on them, and I think he's going to have a lot of fun doing that, whether that be Antonio or Scamacca. I think Antonio's probably got one eye on his fitness, and he will be his first choice striker, and Scamacca will probably have to take a rotation role for the whole of the first season, but then we might see a changing of the guard towards the end. That's how I feel about it, but
just don't want it to become Seb Haller 2.0 is basically what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah, but I think even Haller, if they'd persisted with him and had a system that worked for him, it would have been good. I mean, the good thing about Paqueta, like kind of Chris says, is that it kind of doesn't matter where you play him. Like he's capable of contributing in an important way. This is a really exciting West Ham team. I think they've bought really intelligently. So I'm quite intrigued to see how it gets going. Yeah, I kind of have the same feeling as you, which is I think Moyes likes Moyes dances with the guys who brought him.
Yeah, I agree.
So he's like, these are the guys who got me here, and this is what I'm going to do. So it may take a while for the transition to happen, but I think it's hard to feel anything but good about West Ham this season. I'm excited to watch them play, and I think that these are interesting, progressive signings who will help the team grow over the next kind of 3 years, which is good.
Yeah, let's go next to Nottingham Forest. James L says that I've learned Forest's first few results aren't representative of how well they've actually played. They signed 21 in the end. Did they get over the 22?
I think they got 21.
21, I think we'll land on.
And didn't get Mishi.
Didn't get Mishi over the line on deadline day, did they? So
it's just like, will the real Nottingham Forest players stand out of all the players they've got at the moment? Like, what is their team?
I think it's going to be that 3-4-3, isn't it? And I think that eventually the front line will look like Morgan Gibbs-White, Jesse Lingard and Brennan Johnson.
No,
and they'll have Emmanuel Dennis and stuff on the bench. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's hard to say nailed on, but yeah, I think those three work in how Steve Cooper wants to play. Like, I don't know. The thing is, there's so many forwards at the club. You're like, what about him? And you're like, yeah, fair enough. Like Emmanuel Dennis did score at a good rate last year in the Premier League, but they can't fit everybody on the pitch, can they?
I mean, all you can say at the moment is that like they've not been scalped when it comes to transfer fees for anyone really. Mentioned a few weeks ago that Nico Williams was probably like an investment at 18 rather than being worth 18 at the time.
And they got Aurier through the door, so does that mean Aurier's the backup right back, or was he starting over Nico?
He's also got 3 left backs.
Yeah, so I mean, the depth.
Yeah, Renan Lodi's going to start though, isn't he?
Yeah, but they've got Toffolo, Lodi, and Richards. Richards injured, but like 3 left backs in. It's like
the depth's a little bit weird at the moment, but it might be entirely necessary. I don't know. I think the jury's still out on it just depends how quickly they.
I think they've shipped the most chances of any team in the league.
Bed them in, right?
The season. Although they have admittedly played Manchester City as well.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that like their results are not representative of how they've played. I think they are quite representative of how they played. What I would say is how they've played so far is probably not going to be representative of how they end up playing.
Yeah,
like it's a little bit like last summer, you know, when Arsenal lost those 3 games and then like half the starting lineup completely changed. This is an even more extreme version of that.
Yeah,
and like Cooper hasn't been there that long, man. Like yeah, Cooper would still be bedding in as a coach even without all this changeover happening. So Forest could end up playing like a mid-table side, because when you look at them and you just look at the raw quality of their best 11, you think, damn, this is good.
And Steve Cooper's a really good coach as well.
Well, this will be a good test.
Yeah, it will be, and it's going to be exciting to watch. Let's talk about a team maybe not quite as positive right now as Forest. Everton. Shahan, they say, I've learned that Lampard will not make it to the end of the season. I'm gonna.
You can disagree.
Frank Lampard a little bit. I'm going to defend Frank Lampard a little bit.
That's not really an attack on Frank Lampard.
Well, it is, because they're saying they're going to be sacked.
Yeah, but that's not an attack. That could be just a factual statement. Like, have you seen Everton?
Okay, well, let's say it's a negative about Frank Lampard and Everton.
Sure.
I'm going to say something slightly positive about Frank Lampard and Everton. I think that it's not ideal. It's not perfect how Everton fans will want to play. I don't hate the move to the back three. I don't hate the signings of Conor Cody and Tarkowski to play in a back three either. I think they are pretty sensible in the position that Everton are in, where they've got to try and stay in the league and have no money. You know, both of them coming in for basically, I think it was £0 as a duo, wasn't it? Because Conor Cody's on loan and Tarkowski's on a free. I think the midfield signings have been okay. I think Amadou Onana and James Garner in particular, for a combined 40 million, is pretty smart.
We still don't know how effective Garner's going to be at Premier League level.
We don't, but we know how effective Jesse Gay is going to be, or potentially going to be, and we know how effective Amadou Onana's been at the start of the season.
I felt with Garner,
pretty decent.
It was a bit indicative of like, he's well liked at Manchester United, and I need a British lad in central midfield.
Sorry, this is confusing because there's Garner and then there's Idrissa Garner.
James Garner, sorry. If James Garner had gone to Southampton, I think we'd all be saying that's another good academy pickup by Southampton. Like, I think that's a fine signing for £9 million.
Sure.
To play alongside Amadou Onana.
It's very cheap
in midfield.
It's like almost no risk. Like, that's what's being paid for Billy Gilmore. Like, sure.
Yeah, and then the forward line is my biggest concern. Obviously, for the reasons that they've let Richarlison go, replaced him with Neil Maupay. They've got Shithouse for Shithouse, which I kind of also respect. And then Dominic Calvert-Lewin, when he's back fit, maybe still question marks. But then Anthony Gordon, I don't hate that 3-4-3. I think that's actually Lampard's done pretty well to improve that with a net spend of 0.
And Iwobi in the midfield.
Following the Richarlison sale, I think maybe the net spend's probably around 0. I don't think it's going to be massive. 20 million on McNeil, 40 million, 30 million on Nana, etc. So for a 10 or so million pound net spend, I think he's done pretty well to improve the team into a very solid 3-4-3 position. They're not going to rip up any trees, but if he's got them finishing 15th, I think that's fine, because the squad is in tatters before he took over.
I mean, but we were talking about Everton. I know it's changed dramatically since Carlo Ancelotti was at the helm, and we were talking about them as potential Champions League qualifiers, but
we can't think of them like that, though.
Yeah, of course. But now, is the bar as low as 15th is a good season?
They stayed up basically on the last day of the season last year because the squad was so bad.
Well, the leadership and the I don't know, the behind the scenes was so bad. I don't think it was necessarily a fair reflection of like the talent in the team being what akin to relegation fodder. I'm not sure he's the type of coach yet that improves people or helps them redefine their position or prosper in a different position. I just haven't seen that from him yet. Like he's gone it.
I think Anthony Gordon's got markedly better under Frank Lampard, like he did when he was in charge of Chelsea.
He's also got better in the way that all players of that age who are good get better. Like, I mean, there's always this thing where like a manager who happens to be in charge of a player, like as they're developing, gets credit for their development, and you're like, yeah, they haven't stagnated, but players can just get better by themselves. Like,
Wobie's got better under him.
Saka got better under Emery. I don't think it was because Emery did such an amazing job with him.
Under him, playing into
sure, though I think that's about putting him in the midfield role. Like, I can see that argument with Iwobi, but like, I agree with you. Like, I think that if they finish 15th, I think that's a successful season. Genuinely, I think this squad, even if you like some of the talent in it, I hear what you're saying. It's horribly balanced. You know, it's a little bit better balanced now than it was last season. But if Calvert-Lewin's out for a reasonable period of time,
so maybe a better question then is
staying up.
Can you think of a manager that could finish where your aspirations would be higher than 15th if he was in charge of this current squad right now?
This squad? No, not really.
Well, if that is the case, then...
Well, I'm sure there are some across Europe.
What's a season Everton fans
a Marcelino type you could imagine working quite well with like Dwight McNeil, Calvert-Lewin up front. Like you could imagine quite a rough and ready team there.
I think there are probably managers across Europe, but in this one moment where you've got 30 seconds to think of a really solid name,
Marcelino,
Ancelotti. Yeah.
But I'm just going to defend Everton a little bit and Frank Lampard.
I'm saying he could be the guy that improves all these kind of broken toys or castaways from teams that are in slightly better positions. But I just don't... Let's see. You know, if Neil Maupay gets 4 goals, I'm cut this out at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's not great timing that I'm defending this after they play Liverpool, which when they get toasted, which they always get toasted. But let's talk about Wolves next. Wolves CK says that he's learned Wolves couldn't score in a brothel. Well, they're about to, because they've got big 6'7" Sasa coming in. I've championed 6'6" Voot. He's out the door. Didn't work. Now I'm on to 6'7" Sasha. Small head, big body, goal scorer. I like him.
The torpedo.
The slender
That's what
man.
I've nicknamed him in the group chat the torpedo because he's got such a small head. His body's built like that.
A knitting needle.
And I think that's a really good pickup by Wolves. Great numbers in the Bundesliga at Stuttgart.
Even if he hadn't put up great numbers, you'd be saying that because he's 6'7".
I would, but equally he did put up great numbers, and Wolves need somebody who gets shots off from inside the box, takes shots from really good locations. They create a lot of chances that aren't finished. No disrespect to Raul Jimenez, but he's just not been the same since the injury. And I like the front line of Gonzalo Guedes, Pedro Neto, Sasa Kaladzic with the midfielder Mateus Nunes, Ruben Neves, João Moutinho. I think there's a shape of a really good team there, and I have to say at the start of the season I didn't see it. I thought the shift to a back 4 by Bruno Lage and the decision to ship Conor Cody out was a huge risk, and I thought it might end up costing him his job if it didn't go right. It's kind of started a little bit rocky, but despite the fact they haven't picked the points, I think they're playing pretty well.
They've been unlucky at the start of the season. And like last season, I think like when they were in the top half of the table, there were oftentimes I thought they didn't deserve to be in the top half. But I actually don't think they deserve to be in the bottom. What is it? 6, 5, 6?
They're third bottom, yeah.
Third bottom.
They're third bottom. And you have to say that like even Nathan Collins and Max Kilman have started to form a pretty solid centre-back partnership. So I'm not too worried about Wolves. One team I am worried about, Aston Villa. AVFC Joe 1 says he's learned Gerrard will never manage Liverpool.
I love how damning that was.
I don't know, man, because Villa were good last season, and everyone who said they weren't was wrong. The question is how much that came down to.
Turns out I'm wrong then.
Yeah, you were wrong. The question is whether it came down to Gerrard.
They had a good start under Gerrard, right?
No, they were better all season under him. Like, I mean, they went from being like a minor shot, like they went to being a positive shot, positive expected goal side. And they got pretty unlucky over the course of the season. The question is whether that was Gerrard or whether it was Nick Beale. Beale, who left now. So that kind of looks like an easy story to tell, right? It's like he was the brains, he's gone. Now they're But because what's really concerning is that what was good under Gerrard is actually the defence got a lot better. Like the defence stopped giving up easy chances, and then they brought in a proper defensive midfielder this summer, a guy who's got great ball retention and really active in front of the back line in camera. And yet the defence still looks a lot worse, and that's kind of troubling. And the question as well is whether he's got the juice with the Villa hierarchy to say, bear with me while I stick this out. Because in the Arsenal game, I mean, look, they're against a better team away from home, but the fact that their solution was just like, I don't know, hoof it to Watkins.
And Saliba's just like,
yeah, exactly. Like that was, and also just kick Arsenal out of the game. Like they tried to do that a lot, and it's not
too
great.
old school, isn't it?
But you look at the players and you still think, this is a good team. Like there's a good 11 in there. And that increases the pressure.
So much money,
and they spent weirdly, man. Like, I mean, the Diego Carlos one, didn't like it at the time, still don't. Now he's injured, got worse,
and has caused ripples with the captaincy effect as well, because he bought to replace Tyrone Mings, then he took the captaincy off Tyrone Mings, give it to McGinn, then Diego Carlos done his Achilles, then McGinn has to come back in the team, and it's all mess.
And Mings looks just like, I mean, I don't really blame him because it's a horrible situation, but Mings looks kind of he's flailing at the moment. Like in the Arsenal game, you can see players who, like, I was saying this about like Ramsey and Canberra, they committed a bunch of fouls in that game, and so did McGinn, but it was like they were just like competitive, whereas Mings always looks like he commits fouls because he's kind of like on the edge of like losing his head, and I can't imagine what it's like for him trying to do his job, having been stripped of the captaincy in a side that is a bit of a mess, where it's very clear that the manager doesn't rate him. Like I feel a bit sorry for Tyrone Mings. On the other hand, he isn't good, and he wasn't good the other day. Should have given away a penalty.
I feel I sense the fans turning with every passing minute. You sense the fan. That's a big problem. Okay, Leicester City. I mean, yes, very, very concerned about Leicester. Very concerned. I think Brendan Rodgers' comments post-match last night extremely concerning, where he kind of was intimating.
This isn't the same team or club that it was 2 years ago or whatever.
Wow. I think this is going to come to a very quick end.
I mean, we've covered them pretty extensively in recent weeks, and there's not an awful lot like to say about them that's new that would add any value to the guys at home. But to sign Face from Reims on deadline day and part ways with Fofana, and then that means you're stuck with a Tielemans who doesn't want to be there for the next 6 months, who might sign a pre-contract in January and then phone it in for another 6 months again. Like,
could they go down? Could they go down?
I don't think they'll go down. I mean, they sure.
Only if people down tools on Rodgers and they don't replace him. Like if Rodgers stays there, and people don't down tools, he'll get them playing again. He's a good coach, but if he leaves and they get in a bad manager, like it's difficult. I mean, it really depends what they do. If they get rid of Rodgers, it's one of those things where the guy you get in might not be as good as him, but at least he hasn't
you get the bounce.
Well, and he hasn't kind of like lost it with the squad. Yeah. Like that's the issue right now, because Rodgers is a good coach and he's probably like the best kind of coach that club would have been able to get when they got him. But I don't know, maybe you know what, you're like, get rid of Rodgers and we're going to try and poach Hassan Hüttl from Southampton or something. That'd be interesting. But I don't know.
The makeup for the squad is slightly dodgy now, though.
I also don't feel that sorry for Rodgers.
The back line at Leicester,
did a bad job last season, bad job the year before.
Oh, Pat's not having him. I think the back line at Leicester, centre-back wise particularly, is extremely concerning. Like, the midfield is okay, but Ndidi is constantly injured, and Yuri Tielemans doesn't want to be there. And then up front, Jamie Vardy is now a year older again, and he's still playing over Iheanacho consistently, and
Daka.
Like,
yeah, but at least they've got those guys.
Yeah, but they're not playing.
Yeah, but they will play a bit more. Like, I mean, Daka's going to play a bit more, and also he's not going to go to the World Cup.
And they got Harvey Barnes as well, I suppose.
The forward line isn't massively concerned.
No, it's the back line. Yeah. It's the back line.
And
centre backs,
particularly given how porous they were last season, and then you take like the outstanding defensive prospect out of that, and one of the few defenders that could step out with the ball. One of the few defenders that had some recovery pace. I'm talking central defenders here. They've still got okay wing backs like in James Justin and Timothy Castagna, but yeah. They're just going to have to go to a back three now, because none of those defenders can be trusted in a back two. Yeah. I don't know. This Face might be, I don't even know if I pronounce that correctly. Face might be off the chain, mate. Yeah. He might be the next, step in and make a similar impact to Fofana, but who knows? Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one. So tune in to Football Daily over the course of the season, where we'll be informing you of all the biggest news and opinions. Anyway, anything you want to plug?
I don't think so. Is there anything I should plug?
You can plug your Patreon.
I don't know if that's allowed.
Not allowed, okay. Pat's got a Patreon. Go and sign up if you want to. What do you want to plug? I would like to plug what is going... we did, I think, hopefully,
first episode of The Come Up should be out, featuring a Celtic and a Rangers player. It's been delayed, not of our accord, for like the last 2 months.
What is it? Tell people what it is, mate.
It's basically two young players from rival clubs discussing their football education with one another. No presenters on screen, just them shooting the
God.
I like it. I really, really like it. Make sure you go and watch that if indeed it did come out. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later.